I made the Bloodline even stronger than it already is, bringing people from the past and making a super Bloodline. So let's get into the video. With the new game, we have a new schedule, but there's one pay-per-view that stays the same. Backlash. That's our first pay-per-view, and our first match of the night is for the World Heavyweight title as Dwayne Johnson, TKO board member, forcing himself into a World Heavyweight Championship match against Seth Rollins. However, The Rock gets curb stomped into the mat and loses. Seth Rollins retains his championship, and not a good start for the Bloodline. And in the main event, Roman Reigns. Oh wow, he actually showed up at a B-Show pay-per-view. Can you believe it? Defends against ex-Bloodline member Jey Uso and Seth Rollins? The hell? And to the shock of the Bloodline and Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins wins after elbowing Jey Uso too hard in the back of his head. Seth Rollins in one night retains his world title and becomes the undisputed champion. Of course, the Bloodline and Roman Reigns are not happy with this. They think it's a load of horseradish that Seth Rollins could win both titles in one night. Roman goes to the back crying about how he lost his championship, and The Rock tells him, listen, it's going to be okay. I'll get this fixed. I promise you. And The Rock was able to deliver his promise for Roman. After a little bit of backstage shenanigans, Roman's going to get his rematch. But before that, at Night of Champions, we have a tag team title match. You have the Judgment Day defending their tag titles against Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa, and Rikishi and Umaga. Man, this is some ridiculous politicking. Oh my god, the Bloodline is just... And after 15 minutes of the guys struggling to put each other through a table, Solo and Jimmy defeat Rikishi by throwing him through a table, and the Bloodline win the tag team titles in a completely non-rigged match. But now it's time for the main event. Seth Rollins has to defend the undisputed title against Roman Reigns inside of the Hell in a Cell structure. So these two guys, unsurprisingly, go to the outside. They climb the cell. But here's a problem. They don't know how to go through the cell. They know how to fall off the cell. They know how to fall off multiple times. And I'm sitting there watching this match, starting to get more and more frustrated because these two complete bozos don't know how to put each other through the cell wall. So they're just continually fighting on top of the fucking cell. They fight on top of the cell for like 20 minutes. And finally, Roman puts Seth through the cell and ends the match. Roman Reigns gets his championship back after one of the more miserable experiences on this game so far. Watching two guys fight for 20 minutes, not doing anything of substance. After the match, we find out that both guys have suffered injuries. Oh, I wonder why, because they kept falling off the cell rather than... The next pay-per-view we have is Money in the Bank. Now, judging by the title, guess what's on the card? Money in the Bank, a Money in the Bank ladder match with these amazing 8 wrestlers that deserve the opportunity to become a world champion. Oh yeah, and The Rock bullied his way into this match too, so good job, Dwayne. Thanks for taking the spotlight again. Just like the tables match, for some ungodly reason, these 8 idiots don't know how to set up a ladder and get the title or briefcase. So I had to actually interfere in the match because they wouldn't fucking do it. Anyways, I interfered and finally set the ladder, and then they decided, oh, okay, it's time to go up the ladder now. Sami Zayn would go up the ladder and grab the briefcase, and Ivar looked like he would take it down, but The Rock, for some reason, saved Sami Zayn from getting the ladder tipped over, and because of this, Sami Zayn actually won the match. What? The Rock is sharing the spotlight? I couldn't believe it. And Sami Zayn, you missed your Money in the Bank now. And with both Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns out due to minor injuries, the main event is for the tag titles, the Judgment Day, this time bringing Mommy and Dom Dom take on the Bloodline. And for some reason, Solo comes out and Jimmy Uso and Paul Heyman are completely missing. I guess Solo Sikoa is going solo. After the entrances, we see Jimmy and Paul Heyman back in the ring, so I guess they just were like ghosts or something. And when you think with Rhea and Dom Dom that the Judgment Day would win, right? No, Solo Sikoa pins Damian Priest for the 3 after a Samoan Spike, probably. And the Bloodline retain their championships, and that's the end of the Judgment Day. Honestly, that's not a bad thing, because the Judgment Day are kind of lame, except Rhea. We actually head to NXT, with Rikishi and Umaga leaving. Their true leader of their Bloodline, Yokozuna, enters NXT. Challenges for the NXT Championship against Drew Gulak. And actually, Drew Gulak put up a good fight. He locked on the Dragon Sleeper like 5 different times during this match, but Yoko survived every time. Yoko hit the big bonsai drop, which probably broke all of Drew Gulak's rib cages, and then locked on a mandible claw sleeper thingy-mabigger, and Yokozuna becomes the NXT champion. Yeah, the guy who wrestled his last match back in like 2000, is your NXT champion. The future is now, isn't it? So the evil foreigner defeats the American hero at Great American Bash. How poetic. But now it's time to move on to the biggest show of the summer, SummerSlam, brought to you by Slim Jim. Snap into a Slim Jim. The first match is for the Undisputed Championship. Our Tribal Chief returns with the entire Bloodline at his core to take on LA Knight, the megastar. And despite an absolutely incredible amount of interference, to the point where even Solo Sikoa got ejected, LA Knight would still lose in the end. Wow, I can't believe it. A match ending in an interference with Roman Reigns. But regardless, the Undisputed Champion is still your Undisputed Champion, so. And the main event is a triple threat. Sami Zayn, who cashed in his Money to Bank onto Seth Rollins to win the championship, takes on Seth Rollins, who he cashed in on, and The Rock, who's inserting himself into another match for no apparent reason. Man, The Rock is something to do this, man. What a politician. And actually, after an incredible triple threat match, Seth Rollins gets sent into the turnbuckle by The Rock, and The Rock hits a rock bottom onto Sami Zayn to pin him for the 3. The Rock becomes the World Heavyweight Champion after inserting himself into this match. And Seth Rollins is tired of The Rock appearing in all these matches. At NXT Heatwave, Yokozuna has his first title defense against the Mad Dragon, and one of my personal favorites, Ilya Dragunov. Ilya Dragunov getting hit with a bonsai drop onto him by Yokozuna and just posing like, yeah, I did that. He pins him with the 3 with that pose. It's actually so disrespectful, but Yokozuna squashes Ilya Dragunov. I was expecting so much more out of Dragunov, but I guess you can't beat the Yoko. So Seth Rollins goes to General Manager Adam Pearce and tells him that I want to finish this with The Rock once and for all. I want to make sure he's gone for good. So, at Payback, it is an ambulance match between The Rock and Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship. One of these guys is going to leave in an ambulance and we're probably not going to see him again. The two men hit finisher after finisher after finisher, but it still wouldn't be enough to actually put him in the ambulance and send him away, until Seth Rollins would get the one last curb stomp, pick up The Rock, throw him in the ambulance, and shut the doors. Seth Rollins wins the World Heavyweight Championship as The Rock goes to a local medical facility and we probably won't see him again. Thank God. That's the end of The Rock, guys. We're not going to see him anymore. It's over. At Fastlane, we get introduced to a new member of the Bloodline, Nia Jax, because it's time for the women's division to even be dominated by the Bloodline. Nia Jax challenges champion Zoe Stark. Yeah, you thought it was Rhea Ripley? Well, in your dreams, kid. And Nia Jax would end up squashing Zoe Stark and becoming the new women's world champion. But enough about the women, it's time for the main event. Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa, the champions, defend against Cody Rhodes and John Cena, who look kind of different this time around. They look kind of like action figures that I'd find at Walmart or Target. But these action figures would absolutely obliterate Jimmy and Solo. Just absolute squash match. And Solo Sikoa gets pinned for the 3, and the action figures, the elite figures of WWE, would actually win the tag team championships. With the success of Yokozuna NXT, Rikishi and Umaga decide to follow him down there. As at NXT Halloween Havoc, Rikishi and Umaga, who I call the Thick Bloodline, are going to take on Gallus, the NXT Tag Team Champions. And despite Wolfgang's interferences on the outside, the match ends when Joe Coffey throws Umaga into the turnbuckle. Because the turnbuckle pad was gone, the ref immediately calls for the bell. That's how the match ends. Because the turnbuckle pad was removed, the ref's like, oh, that's it, it's over. So the Thick Bloodline got screwed out of their title match because of Wolfgang and him dumb turnbuckle pad. And that's how the pay-per-view ends. At Survivor Series, it's time for the War Games match. With The Rock being sent to the local medical facility to never be seen again, the Bloodline are pissed off and they want revenge for their fallen brother. Roman Reigns leads Jimmy Uso, Solo Sikoa, and new Bloodline member Tama Tonga as they take on the team of Seth Rollins, the World Heavyweight Champion, the elite figures Cody Rhodes and John Cena, and a pissed off LA Knight. And after a hellacious War Games match, Seth Rollins ends up hitting a curb stomp onto Jimmy Uso for the pin, and Team Anti-Bloodline win, thus robbing the Bloodline of tag title shots, and LA Knight gets a rematch. However, Tama Tonga takes the fault for losing, so he gets excommunicated out of the Bloodline. His first day on the job, and he's already out. That's kind of depressing. Start of the new year, NXT New Year's Evil, Rikishi and Umaga are finally going to get their revenge against Gallus in an Extreme Rules Tornado Tag Team match to finally see who's the better team. And after a chaotic brawl, Rikishi hits the big bonsai drop onto Joe Coffey for the 3, even with the pose. So Rikishi and Umaga become the new NXT Tag Team Champions, definitively defeating Gallus. It's time for the Royal Rumble, one of the biggest shows. We got 3 big matches. The first one is for the Women's World Championship as Rhea Ripley takes on Nia Jax for the women's title. The match ends in the worst way imaginable. Rhea Ripley gets back in the ring. Rather than Nia Jax getting back in the ring herself, she decides just to win by countout, or lose by countout. Rhea Ripley wins by countout, meaning that Nia Jax is still the women's champion, and there's going to be consequences for this, because countout wins are not tolerated here. But it's time for the Royal Rumble match. It's not the main event. There's one more match. After a 30-minute Royal Rumble match, the final 2 end up being Elton Prince and, of all people, Triple H. And Triple H eliminates Elton Prince from the match. Triple H wins the Royal Rumble match. This mofo booked himself to win the Royal Rumble and go fight the Undisputed or World Heavyweight Champions. But now it's time for the main event. The main event, Roman Reigns has to defend the Undisputed Championship against LA Knight. No bloodline whatsoever. This has got to be the moment where LA Knight finally breaks through the glass ceiling, right? No. No, he doesn't. Roman Reigns beats him with a spear. After all that hype and winning back an opportunity to get a title shot with no bloodline, LA Knight still chokes. After the match, Triple H comes out and says, "I'm gonna fight you at WrestleMania, Roman." So Roman Reigns has to defend against Triple H, the booker of the show. There's just no way that Roman can win this, can he? At NXT Vengeance Day, the next NXT pay-per-view, Yokozuna once again has to defend the NXT Championship against Tyler Bate in a steel cage match. And because Yokozuna is too big to actually climb over the cage, he decides to do the one thing he knows how to do. Bonsai drop. He bonsai drops onto poor Tyler Bate, bringing down his 500-pound weight onto Tyler Bate's chest and pins him for the 3 with the pose. Yokozuna once again retains the championship, and the thick bloodline is running wild on this brand. Who would have thought? All they had to do was leave Raw, and now look at them. They're the dominant force on NXT. Remember when I said that Nia Jax would be punished? Well, at Elimination Chamber, her punishment is defending the Women's World Championship in an Elimination Chamber match against Rhea Ripley, Becky Lynch, Liv Morgan, Trish Stratus, and Piper Niven. The final 3 end up being Piper Niven, Rhea Ripley, and Nia Jax. And Rhea Ripley hits a riptide on the Nia Jax, pinning the champion, and then also pinning Piper Niven. Rhea Ripley wins the Women's World Championship, getting revenge on Nia Jax by pinning her, and also winning the championship at the same time. Poetic. Cinema. Mwah. The final NXT pay-per-view of the year, Stand and Deliver. After Nia Jax's loss at the Chamber, she decides to go to NXT. Seeing the success of the other Bloodline members in Rikishi, Umaga, and Yokozuna, she thinks that she can go to NXT and just win the championship. She's fighting Tiffany Stratton, the current champion. Unfortunately, Nia Jax thought wrongly because Tiffany Stratton hits the prettiest moonsault ever to pin her for the 3. Tiffany Stratton retains her championship, and now Nia Jax is lost once again. She needs to win a championship, but she doesn't have much time left. In the main event, Braun Breaker, the last bastion of NXT, challenges Yokozuna for the NXT Championship, but Yokozuna is bringing his backup. Umaga and Rikishi are with him on this show. The final showdown, Yokozuna versus Braun Breaker. And despite Braun Breaker's best attempts to stop Yokozuna, in the end, Yokozuna hits another bonsai drop for the 3. Yokozuna completely dominates and destroys everyone in NXT, ending him and Rikishi and Umaga's run with all the titles. Except the North American one, but that one doesn't count. And now it's time for WrestleMania. The first match of the night is for the Women's WWE Championship. Nia Jax, after failing twice, is failing upwards and getting a championship match against Io Sky. And then the worst thing happens. Nia Jax gets back in the ring, and rather than going out and trying to chase Io to get her back in the ring, she just wins by countout, meaning that she did not win the championship. Did she drink stupid juice or something? She's lost 3 championship opportunities now. Unbelievable. And the main event is Triple H versus Roman Reigns, but there's a twist. The Rock made his return after being put in an ambulance and driven away. The Rock returns not only to help the Bloodline, not only to encourage them, he's the special referee of the match. The Rock is the special ref in a match between Triple H and Roman Reigns for the Undisputed Championship. And despite Triple H working his ass off, the Bloodline's interference and The Rock being a shady referee leads to Roman Reigns retaining his Undisputed Championship in the most bullcrap, Bloodline-esque way possible. Triple H, the booker, he books himself in this match, and in the end, he still gets screwed by the Bloodline and The Rock. And that is a poetic ending to WrestleMania, if I do say so myself. The Bloodline showing off their political prowess by completely dominating this company. Minus the tag titles, but you know what? Roman's the champion, so that's all that matters. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time.